That within the DA, leadership have now spilled over into the Public Protector's Office ahead of the party's elective Congress later this year. A Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Willie Oukamp, has lodged a complaint with the Public Protector against his predecessor, Dion George, over the alleged abuse of state resources while in office. Now, Oukamp is also calling for an investigation into claims of a fabricated whistleblower report during the period leading up to George's removal. The complaint names George's former advisor and acting chief of staff, Shelton Moletze, as well as his former personal assistant, Travers Legoff. To unpack the political implications of this development, we're joined by Unisa's political science professor, Dirk Kotze. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the genesis of this infighting within the DA was allegations that the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, had been misusing public funds. Tell us about the implications of such an allegation.
Yes, I think good afternoon, where it really started is when the former Minister, Dion George, was removed as a member of the cabinet because he was accused by both John Steenhuisen and the President Ramaphosa that he misrepresented government policy with respect to the trade in rhino horns and ivory and the so-called canned lions. That developed into a much broader issue because I would say what is behind this is that there's a contestation within the DA, but it's also a broader contestation between, on the one hand, let's say the private sector concerns, on the private sector interests in especially the wildlife trade industry. And then on the other hand is the fact that the DA is seen as a private sector, or as a private sort of trading, and the private sector and the private pro-private economy in general. So in a sense, it's a tension between the two. And in the case of Minister John Steenhuisen, who is Minister of Agriculture, it partly affects his portfolio because game farming is also an agricultural component. And then on the other hand is that of those who are very much in terms favor or protecting environmentalism, the green economy, wildlife protection, and so forth. And that is a very difficult issue to reconcile, because it is, on the one hand, something which does promote, for example, tourism a lot in South Africa, it's game farming and hunting specifically. And then on the other hand, there are the environmentalist concerns of saying, well, there is the element of abuse and of smuggling that is taking place all over the world from South Africa. And that former minister now, Dion George, was indeed in Brazil at the COP meeting of this, where he then said that the trade in rhino and ivory is completely banned in South Africa, which is, according to President Ramaphosa, not the case. So that ignited where we are now, and it has become now very much a personal issue, because the former Minister Dion George was at the same time within the Democratic Alliance itself, the chairperson of their financial committee, and he revealed that the leader, John Steenhuisen, went over the limits of his credit card, and that by implication he abused it and therefore withdrew it. So those are the components. And then at the same time now, also the former minister, John George, is accusing especially Willie Oukamp, who is his successor, and he's more involved in the game industry as a farmer also, that they use that in order to create a sense of vilifying him or degrading his image in public and within the DA. So it's an absolutely difficult situation in order to resolve.
Prof, you've succinctly encapsulated what this squabble is about. Let's look at then the implications. Does the DA then risk a credibility gap if it allows John Steenhuisen to run for re-election while a federal legal commission is investigating his credit card usage?
Well, that we will have to see. At the moment, it looks like he's in a strong position, and we will have to see if there's going to be other members who will stand as candidates against him in the April Federal Congress of the DA. At the moment, it doesn't look necessarily that there's strong contenders in the pipeline, and therefore it doesn't look as if it within the DA it's as a party and the members of this party and the branches of this party, as if there's a major sort of pushback or criticism of him in what has happened. But it's still early in the year. I think the process of campaigning for the April conference of the DA still will have to start to a large extent. And then we will have a better indication, because there's another important decision that must be made, and that's the future of Helen Zille. She wants, as we know, she wants to stand as the mayoral candidate in Johannesburg. And if she does that, her position in the DA as the chairperson of the Federal Council, which is similar to a Secretary General of the party, will come into play, because she won't be able to do both of that. Under normal circumstances. So there are quite a number of important decisions that the ANC, that the DA will have to take as part of this leadership renewal and election process.
The Helen Zille aspect is very important. Her silence has been largely seen as just kind of letting Steenhuisen be, and almost a nod as he stands for re-election. What do you make of that?
Yes, I think that is, one can interpret it like that. I don't think she wants now to become involved herself in any form of contestation about the leadership of the DA, because the DA is in a precarious situation. They have to elect a new leadership in a year when there's also important elections, the local government elections that will be around about November this year. So it means that the DA cannot go into a full-blown renewal of their leadership at the time when they are supposed to, by April, already starting to campaign very actively for this election. And I think that is going to be the main challenge, is how to give new legitimacy to their leadership, their group of leaders, but at the same time also not to be seen to hide some problems within the party, that there is a sense of renewal, and if someone has abused their position, that person should not be re-elected. But at the same time, as I said, there must be this element of stability in the process. As I said, by April, they will be fully involved already in the campaign process.
Prof, you've mentioned that Steenhuisen does stand a strong chance. Now, you have the likes of Gordon Hill-Lewis, Solima Latsi, as well as Alan Winde. Now, if the party does move away from the Steenhuisen archetype, what kind of leader is the DA's Federal Congress likely to favor?
Well, I think what they will most possibly look at is someone from the younger generation. Now, those that you have mentioned, most of them are younger than him. They come from a new generation of mayors. So here Brink, formerly mayor of Tshwane, might be also in the mix. And it will create an element of seen being as renewal, as reaching out to the younger generation. And I think on top of that is also, to extend the diversity of their leadership, for which they have been criticized in the past a lot, but still at the moment they do so. These will all be considerations that they take into account. Their federal chairperson at the moment, Dr. Ivan Meyer, is coming from the Western Cape, so he's there. But Solima Latsi is a very strong new young person within the party is the Minister of Communication, so he plays an important role. So all of them, and then the Mayor of Cape Town, obviously also, he can demonstrate his ability to govern quite a big entity, the Cape Town Metro, very successfully. So all of them can have their pros and cons in which what they can present to the DA's Congress ultimately for an election. But we will have to see how many of them are going to be nominated. That will be the first indication of whether there's going to be a real contestation. Because as I've said, they will have to put in a very strong person in the position of what Helen Zille will maybe have, will open up as the Federal Council chairperson. It's a very key position within the DA also.
Professor Dirk, thank you very much for your time. That was Unisa's political science professor, Dirk Kotze.